What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat basketball channel. My name is Amir, and before I get into today's video, I just want to thank everybody for their continued support. I hit my goal of reaching 300 subscribers, so thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. My new goal is to obviously get to 400 subscribers by the end of this month, so if you could please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot to me. Thank you for the support. And so for today's video, I want to talk about a few different things. First, I want to talk about the FIBA World Cup. The United States just lost to Lithuania today, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I haven't been following and watching too many of the games because the games are super early in the morning, but I was able to catch the fourth quarter of today's game and kind of disappointed in the United States, like surprised that they were able to lose to Lithuania. I know that this is a super young United States team led by Anthony Edwards, and they were developing chemistry. They were, I believe, 4-0 until this game, but they are young and they're still learning how to play with each other. These European teams typically have more experience playing with each other. They know each other extremely well. And it's a different style of basketball. There's different rules and dimensions for these games. So it kind of makes sense that the United States can lose to a team like Lithuania, but I don't expect them to lose the tournament. But anyway, related to FIBA, wanted to talk about Serbia. So obviously there have been a lot of Miami Heat fans that have been elated and ecstatic about Nikola Jovic's performance in the qualifying rounds, and he had two really good games, and he was the player of the game in 2 games in a row, and I think it was against South Sudan. Jovic had 25 points on like 9 for 9 shooting. He was perfect from the field, just dominated, destroyed South Sudan. He was 5 for 5 from 3. So we're stoked. And, even I was stoked, but the Miami Heat fans got in over their head. And after those 2 performances, and if you watched other videos from other Miami Heat content creators, everybody was asking, is Jovic untouchable, untradeable when it comes to the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, which I think was pretty comical. Based on just 2-3 games, people were just saying that, we need to keep Jovic. We can't trade him. We need to keep him by all means necessary, which I thought was pretty hilarious, especially when we're talking about trading for Damian Lillard, who is still a superstar, who's at the end of his prime, but he still is in his prime. He just had technically his best season, if you will, I guess, scoring season. Definitely. He's averaged 32, 33 points per game with like 7.5 assists. So he's still an all-star player, and he's also going to be a amazing fit sitting next to Jimmy and Bam Adebayo as our third star. He's only going to make it easier for those two. And I just thought it was ludicrous that Miami Heat fans in the comments of so many videos were just saying that Jovic is untouchable, untradeable for Damian Lillard, a superstar. I think people in the Miami Heat community are amazing and awesome and great and passionate, but also just like any other NBA team or sports fanatic, sports fans in general, there's obviously crazy, delusional, and uninformed fans. And the Miami Heat obviously have a ton of those as well. I'm not an expert, but I'm not delusional like some other fans saying that, one, we should keep this team as is because Jimmy Butler simply needs help. We haven't been able to win a championship. We need more star power. And Jovic and Hawkes and all these young players are not on Jimmy's timeline, right? He needs support. He needs help. And Damian Lillard is going to provide that for the Miami Heat, which would catapult us to a contender. I would think that we would be the best team in the East, and I think just overall in the NBA by getting Damian Lillard. So just thought it was funny that people were just saying that Jovic is untradeable because what has he done in the last 2 games? So in the last 2 games, he played against Serbia, played against Italy, and in that game, Jovic had 5 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists on 1 for 6 shooting. Okay, not a big deal. he's not the focal point. He's 20 years old. He's super young, and he had a bad shooting game. That's not a big deal. Jovic, then I believe today against the Dominican Republic, they actually beat them, which was great. But Jovic, 0 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 0 for 7 shooting. So is this the guy that we don't want to trade for or include in a Damian Lillard trade? So like, is that where we're going to stop? If they're like, Portland's like, okay, in order to get Damian Lillard, you have to trade Jovic. And so you Heat fans out there are going to say that, nope, we're not going to accept this trade. Let's not go through with this because we need to keep Jovic. Just because he had 2 good games in the FIBA World Cup. I know it's not the NBA. There are very talented players, and a lot of these countries do have some NBA players or former NBA players, and it's very competitive. It is meaningful that he had some really good games and showed some good signs in terms of his playmaking ability. So still getting some assists in these games, even though he wasn't shooting well. We know he can rebound. He's 6'11", and he's showing that he has that stroke. And obviously within the Miami Heat system, we can develop him into an awesome, amazing player, especially on the offensive end. And, you know, of course, he's going to be the perfect fit next to Bam, as a lot of us have mentioned. And also defensively, I think we're going to help, obviously, get him to become a better two-way player. He's already put on 15 pounds of muscle this offseason, so he's on his path. But, again, I didn't make too much of it because this was the FIBA World Cup, okay? This is not the National Basketball Association where Jovic was getting 25 points, 17 points against NBA competition. And it was only one game that he went perfect. Who cares? That happens. Not often, but sure, it happens in the NBA where a guy can go 6 for 6, 7 for 7, but doesn't mean he's going to do that often, right? Or repeat that. And we see this. He's basically been 1 for 13 in the last 2 games combined. So just think it's comical that he's untradeable. So now, based off these last two performances, do you think he's still untradeable? Do you think we shouldn't include him in a trade by any means? Because of course, I would love to keep him. I do like him. I think he's going to be a pretty good player potentially, and has a higher ceiling than like a Jaime Jaquez. But in my opinion, you trade both. Honestly, you trade both, and you trade Kyle Lowry, and you throw in Tyler Hero to get another draft pick, and that hopefully should be good right there because no other teams, according to other reports out there, have put in any offers, right? So a lot of execs think that Damian Lillard is not worth it for the many reasons that I have been saying and other Heat creators have been saying in the past: his age, his contract, and he doesn't want to play anywhere else. So anyway, enough with that. Next topic that I wanted to talk about was a reporter for the Sports Illustrated, Chris Mannix, I believe is his name. So he, on a podcast, recently said, which I think is absurd and ridiculous. He said that he thinks that if the Miami Heat don't get Damian Lillard in trade this offseason, that he expects them to be significantly worse. And because of the loss of Gabe, Vincent, and Max Strus, who are our starting backcourt specifically last year, he thinks that we are going to drop and be the 10th seed. He doesn't even think we're going to make the playoffs next year. And so this national reporter, with this ridiculous take, thinks the Heat are going to be way worse next year, which I think is just hilarious. Like, the Miami Heat over the past 6 years or so have got no credit. Literally, we get like no televised national games, really. Like, all reporters do when it comes to like the national games, once we got into the playoffs and made these deep runs in the past 4 years, is basically talk about our undrafted players. They don't do any research. It's either we have undrafted players and Heat culture. They don't really focus or pay attention to the Miami Heat. And so I think it's just absurd that a team that just went to the finals and is going to retain most of their team and added actual pieces that are going to actually make us better, I think, outside of the point guard position. We still need to address that, especially if we don't get Dame. There's still some people on the market that we can sign. I don't know if an Ish Smith is available, but like an Ish Smith is someone that can come in and fill in for a Gabe Vincent. But anyway, this clown literally said the Heat will be 10. Like, what kind of disrespect and delusional guy can say something like that? What kind of stupid take? Like, how is this guy getting paid as a national reporter journalist. Like, what a stupid take. That's like me saying I think next year the Chicago Bulls are going to be a top 2 seed. I think without Lonzo, um, even though he's out for the season next year, Vus just signed. I think Levine's going to be healthy. DeMar is going to, push it because he's like got 2 more good years left. I think they're going to be a top 2 seed over Boston or like a Milwaukee or a Miami. So like who would in their right mind would make that take on that Bulls team next year? That's like the equivalent to me, which I think is like a stupid take. I would never say that. So I don't know why he thinks that, because he said mainly though you're losing your starting backcourt. Um, sure, but both of them were not starters to begin the season. It was Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero. So the Heat were the 7th seed technically last year. They fell to the 8th because they lost to the Hawks in the first play-in game, and so we were technically the 7th seed, and but we were the 8th seed eventually, and we made it to the finals with a historic, amazing run. Even though Jimmy Butler got hurt in the second round, we still were able to get to the finals, and also without Tyler Hero. So he's talking about regular season, not the playoffs. But let's talk about the regular season. The Miami Heat were the #1 most injured team in the East, #3 overall in the NBA. A lot of those were from Kyle Lowry, but still, Kyle Lowry was a big part of our offense and strategy. He was our starting point guard to begin the year. So we had a lot of injuries. And we also had players that killed us, like Dwayne Dedman, and even Cody Zeller. He did okay, but not so much in the playoffs. But either way, we've gotten better in that area. Like with our big men, we signed Orlando Robinson, who I think is going to step up this season. And we also signed Thomas Bryant, who also played pretty well last year. Played for the Lakers and the Nuggets. Didn't play much for the Nuggets. The Nuggets. He played more minutes for the Lakers. Averaged 13 and like 7 with the Lakers, only like 6 points or something with the Nuggets. So, but overall, he averaged 10 points, like 7 rebounds per game. So that's going to help us in the regular season over Dwayne Dedman, who was just his plus minus was historically insane. He was like minus 22, like in his 10 minutes that he's played per game. We also replaced one of those players with Josh Richardson, someone who used to be on the Miami Heat, who knows our system, who's a good two-way player. And he did pretty well last season as well. He played for 2 teams also last year, the Spurs and the Pelicans, and he averaged 11 points, few assists, few rebounds per game, which is what Max Strus did. He did that in 23 minutes. He shot 35%, round up to 36 between the 2 teams that he played in 23 minutes. Max Strus averaged 11.5 points, couple rebounds, couple assists in 28 minutes per game, and he shot 35%, which is the worst in his career. His first year with the Heat, shot 38%. Second year, he shot 41%, then he shot 35%. So I think Josh Richardson for Max is a wash, and Josh is a better two-way player than Max, in my opinion. Not as good as a volume shooter, but overall, he's giving you the same stats essentially, but he's also a better two-way player in less minutes. Gabe Vincent averaged 10 points per game, a couple assists, a couple of rebounds. He played 26 minutes per game. He shot 33% from 3. So I know we're missing out on a point guard, a backup point guard or a starting point guard, if you will. I don't know where Kyle Lowry is going to be next season. If he's going to be he's definitely going to be on the team, obviously, if we don't trade him, if we don't get Damian Lillard in this exercise. But I guess we're missing out a little bit on the starting or backup point guard. But those 2 guys were undrafted. And it was only 2 players. Like, again, Josh, I think, makes up for Max, and then we need a point guard. So that there is an issue there. But I don't think that takes us from the 7th seed last year to the 10th seed this year. We still have Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero, and also arguably the best coach in the NBA. So this Chris Mannix guy is such an idiot, in my opinion. Like, you don't want to give any credibility to Spo, who's arguably the best, maybe the second best coach in the NBA, at worst the 3rd best coach in the NBA. I just don't understand his take. Like, it's kind of blasphemous to me. Like, who does he think is going to leapfrog us? Toronto lost Fred VanVleet. They're still young. They're tanking. They're trying to trade Siakam. I mentioned the Bulls. Lonzo's out again for the entire year. So are they going to jump ahead of the Heat? Maybe, but probably not. Indiana, all they have is Halliburton, Mathurin. I don't know who else they have even on that team. they could get better, but obviously I don't think they're going to leapfrog the Heat. The Cavs could be better because they're young, they're talented. The Knicks, maybe in the regular season, but they only added DiVincenzo. Like they haven't really added anybody else ahead of the Heat. And again, they were only ahead of the Heat, in my opinion, because the Heat were so injured last year. So are the Knicks that much better? I don't think so. Are the Nets? Of course not. Like all they have is Mikal Bridges. Like last year, they were ahead of the Heat because for most of the season they had Kyrie and Kevin Durant, excuse me, and that kind of helped them with their record. So I don't know who he thinks is going to jump ahead of the Miami Heat, and also I don't know why he's giving so much credibility to Max Strus and Gabe. Like they were so inconsistent last season. They're role players. They're undrafted for a reason. They're not superstars. What happens to any Miami Heat player when they leave the Miami Heat system? What happens? What happened to Tyler Johnson? What happened to Dion Waiters? What happened to James Johnson? What happened to even Josh Richardson? What happened to Rodney Magruder? Like, what happened to Wayne Ellington? Did Wayne Ellington hit as many threes as he did with the Lakers and whoever other teams he went to? Detroit, I don't even know if he's in the league anymore. Like, all these players that leave the Miami Heat typically don't do better. Derrick Jones Jr. didn't do that much with the Bulls. Didn't, play as many significant minutes in those different systems. So I'm sure there's 20 other players I can name. Kelly Olynyk, what has he done? He's actually not too bad on the Jazz. Maybe not the best example, but that's one out of like how many guys did I just name? So yeah, I thought it was just a stupid take, ridiculous, and funny how some people have jobs in the national media. But anyway, last thing too, not much news on the Damian Lillard front. Made a few short form videos updating just a few things, a few articles that came out that said a lot of execs out there are not putting in offers for Damian Lillard. And again, it's because of his age, it's because of his contract, and because he doesn't want to play anywhere else. So that was something I talked about, and that's been evident. Miami's the only offer out on the table, and it's the best offer so far. They might be lowballing because they don't want to bet against themselves. And I'm thinking once we get closer to camp, which another article came out, and I already did a video on that, was saying that the teams are going to come together hopefully and start negotiating when it gets closer to camp, which I believe is October 2nd or 3rd. So hopefully in the next few weeks, maybe third week of September, they could start having conversations. Miami can say, okay, let's stop lowballing them perhaps and add another piece. And that other piece could be Jovic, right? Jovic, Hawkes, couple first-round picks, another one with Tyler Hero to a third team, Kyle Lowry or Duncan Robinson, whoever, to make salaries match. So I think that's going to happen as well. Another update too is just Mark J. Spears. I talked about his interview that he had with Damian Lillard, who didn't say much, was pretty tight-lipped, didn't want to get fined, didn't want to pull James Harden, make a stink. But he also came out a couple days ago just saying, I think this deal is going to happen before training camp. So, and he talked to Damian Lillard. Maybe he has some insider information, perhaps. I don't know. But that's all I have on the Damian Lillard front. That's all I have for today for this video. So thanks again for watching. And again, if you can subscribe to the channel, if you could like, comment, and share this video, I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.